So from there, we'll target a few technical challenges. So if you look at the first full measure, you'll see the A and C here, and then followed by B and D. So the score recommends to use the fourth and third fingers. So you would do, and then 4 and 3. So one thing to help with this is you want your positioning to where your palm is pretty much parallel with the fretboard like this, because sometimes it's very common to angle this way, especially if you're stacking fingers in first position. But if you're that way, it's kind of hard to do this if you're angled this way. So you want to be more of a parallel position so that you can easily get there. So if that's an alternative to that, if that's kind of a challenge or you just want something a little easier, one way to do it is just to simply slide up 1 and 2. So that would be, so you have a shift to third position and then back down. So that's the second alternative. Here's the first one once more. So palm is parallel. Now, the next challenge, I would say, this is fairly simple, but if you're leading into the third measure, sometimes people get used to using the third finger here, but in some cases you want to do that, but it depends on what you're doing. So what happens here is you have the fourth finger on the D so that you can use the C for the C chord. So be sure to use your pinky on the D here as you lead into the third full measure so that you can easily access the C with your third finger. Now, the third part I'll highlight is if you look into the second line, the third measure of the second line, this is probably the most challenging part for the left hand, and it occurs 4 times in this piece. So you have, and then third finger on the D, so that you can easily access the fourth finger on the G sharp and the bass. So after you've been using the fourth finger on the D, you'll change to the third finger on the D, and you can even lift off the first finger when you do that if you want. And then you have to really rotate your wrist to where the right side of your palm, where your pinky is closer to the fretboard than the left side. And that also kind of requires bringing in your elbow a little bit closer to your body. So once you have, and then there's a little rotation here. Because you want to be able to be as ready as possible with your pinky while the D with the third finger is still ringing. So you don't want to have to make a big movement there. So what I would do is go very slowly, rotate here, make sure you're ready, and then just practice it like that for a bit without concern for rhythm or time at first. So. And practice that a bunch till it feels more comfortable. That's probably the trickiest spot, and since it happens 4 times in this, you want to be very comfortable with it. And then the last thing I mentioned, as I got to the end of that part, if you see the last measure of the second line, you have, it's written just like this. I think it sounds good to have a slur from the B, C to the B, so you can pull off with your first finger. And if you do pluck all the notes, what I'd recommend is just being stronger on the C and lighter on the other 2 notes. So that would be, so that it still has a nice flow to it.